Of course, as many Rangers fans do know, this past regular season was very, very bad. Things were pretty much a complete disaster from start to finish for the New York Rangers. It was just a terrible, terrible season, but the one big change that this team is going to have from the beginning of this season compared to the beginning of last season is the fact that this team will have to begin this season both JT Miller and Vladislav Gavrikov. And in today's video, we're going to kind of talk about these two players and how big of an impact I think they can possibly have on this Rangers team and kind of how big of a kind of role they're possibly going to play as well, because these are two players who, were both not on this team at the beginning of last regular season, but I think these are two players that should and hopefully will have a pretty massive impact on this team right from the beginning of this upcoming season. And these are two guys that are not only, I think, going to help this team kind of win for this upcoming season, but also in the coming seasons as well. Both of them are locked up still long-term. JT's got quite a few years left on his, $8 million cap hit. And then you also got Gavrikov, who, of course, just signed his 7-year deal with a $7 million cap hit per season. So I think overall, it was a really good kind of couple moves there, picking up a guy like JT before the trade deadline there, of course, shipping off, Philip Hedl and Victor Mancini, a solid prospect, and, the first-round pick there, and they get back some pretty solid assets there, but the main one being, of course, JT Miller, who I really do think has the potential to have a major impact on this team. And when you really take a look at kind of what this New York Rangers team kind of lacked since the last time they were in the playoffs, for example, when they went up against the Florida Panthers, who went on to eventually, of course, win the Stanley Cup that season there in the 2023-24 season, as the Rangers lost in the Eastern Conference Finals in Game 6, they didn't have players like a JT Miller and a Vladislav Gavrikov. These are two guys who both have a good kind of toughness to the game there. They're both good veteran players who have a lot of experience in the playoffs and, regular season and just in the NHL in general. They're two kind of, solid vets there. And I think with JT Miller, we know what he brings. I mean, obviously he was once a New York Ranger, but he has kind of taken a massive step up since his previous time of being with Rangers, of course. And now he's kind of turned into I would say number one caliber centerman, but he brings a great two-way game, great defensively, great offensively. He can kill penalties. He's a solid face-off taker, but the big thing as well, he's not just going to be a good two-way centerman offensively and defensively, but he's also going to bring a ton of toughness, physicality, energy, grit, and just some of that kind of just to piss you off. The other team, you're just not going to love playing against a guy like JT Miller. He's going to try and get under his skin there, try and draw some penalties, battle with you after the whistle, all that kind of stuff. So I just think having a guy like JT Miller now, going into a potential playoff run or playoff series, I think having a guy like that now compared to what this team was looking like before is just such a major difference and will be such a huge help. And then you take a look at a guy like Vladislav Gavrikov on the playoff side of things as well. We didn't have a true kind of another kind of top pairing kind of guy to go alongside Foxy the last few kind of playoff runs. So I think having a real good bona fide kind of shutdown defenseman, that has been something this team has clearly been lacking for years and years now, even back when this team made their kind of first of the two there of the Eastern Conference kind of finals appearances with this kind of core, you could say. They still didn't have that other kind of really good kind of shutdown guy to go alongside someone like a Foxy or to even just really be a kind of another kind of high-end defenseman, right? We've only really had Foxy for quite a few years now, who is a true kind of high-end defenseman. I'm not just saying like a decent kind of top four caliber guy or like a solid kind of second pairing guy. I'm talking about a real kind of other high-end defenseman. We just haven't had one of those guys other than Foxy. So I really do think adding in a guy like a Gavrikov, who's also got that good toughness and physicality, but mainly is just going to be that good shutdown, reliable defenseman, alongside adding in a really good two-way, gritty, tough, energetic, kind of physical centerman, I just think is such an amazing couple moves there and really should kind of make this team a whole lot better come playoff time. I think these two players really do kind of make this New York Rangers squad a whole lot scarier come playoff time, and that's been something that this team has absolutely been lacking. So I think in playoff time, this team definitely should be in a better spot than where they were the past couple kind of times they've been there, because you also got to consider the last time the Rangers were in the playoffs there, even Will Cooley, that was his rookie season there, right? That wasn't when Will Cooley kind of took that massive step up, which we saw last season, right? So I think this Rangers team, since they did lose in Game 6 to the Florida Panthers, we have seen this team, I would say, do a lot of really good things to make this team a much more kind of fierce and possibly kind of better just overall playoff kind of team. So I am really excited to see what this squad could possibly look like heading into the playoffs there. I'm going to assume, of course, as of right now, they're going to make playoffs this upcoming season there. I expected them to do that last season, but obviously with how bad things went there, it didn't happen. But I really do think that, with a guy like, Will Cooley, for example, taking that massive step up in his development, adding in a guy like JT Miller now, and Vladislav Gavrikov, just those kind of 2 and 3 kind of moves alone are the 2 moves there, and then, Cooley doing his thing. Just those 3 kind of things happening alone is a major, major change and major help for this team come playoff time. It puts this team in a much better position for the playoffs there when you have to go up against these Florida Panthers type teams who are going to absolutely just battle you. They're going to just be a hard-nosed, tough team to play against, but also have that kind of high-end offense and high-end defense. So you got to have a good all-around team, but you also have to have that physicality and toughness, which I think this Rangers team has clearly made some major upgrades since the last time they were in the playoffs. So I think this team just right now in itself is much better built for the playoffs there. And if we can see, a guy like a Gabe Perreault possibly take that big step up this season as well and really kind of blossom in his kind of real kind of first full season of pro hockey, then maybe we can see, this team take a huge step forward there. If you have a guy like Will Cooley continue his stuff there, you add in a guy like Gavrikov, you see a guy like JT Miller from the beginning of the season there, and then you have some other guys kind of get back on track, and maybe you have one of these young guys, like I said, like a Gabe Perreault, kind of take that big step, then I think this team can be in a much, much better spot just overall. So I think this team should be much, much improved, not only for the regular season, but absolutely for the playoffs, especially with those 2 moves there, by adding in a guy like Vladislav Gavrikov, who I do think is a true kind of top pairing caliber defenseman. I think he's a number 2 kind of caliber player, and especially being alongside Adam Fox, that could truly be one of the kind of top maybe 5 defense pairs in the entire NHL possibly. It definitely has that kind of potential, so I'm hopeful we'll see them together and they can kind of thrive, because this is the exact type of player I think Adam Fox has been kind of missing and lacking, is that true kind of big, tougher, veteran, shutdown kind of guy to go alongside him to really allow him to kind of have that free roam of the ice there and do whatever he needs to help this team out. Because Adam Fox is a dynamic offensive and defensive defenseman. He's great in both areas, but he hasn't had that really good kind of top pairing kind of guy to go alongside him, right? He's had Ryan Lindgren for the most part, who is a solid defenseman and at moments kind of second pairing caliber guy. But let's be honest, game in and game out, he doesn't necessarily play like that. And he's had moments of being that kind of, top four kind of guy, but for the most part, he just isn't quite that. So I definitely think they could be a pretty great pair alongside each other, but now taking a look at the forward side of things there for JT Miller, I think some kind of a line looking like JT Miller as a center, of course, then on the right wing, Mika Zibanejad, and on the left wing, we could have Will Cooley, which I think would provide a really good kind of two-way forward line there. I think with all their kind of defensive games being, pretty good for the most part there, and I understand, Mika's advantage, I was not the best overall defensively last season there, but I think once he made the switch to wing, he obviously wasn't quite as bad as he was at center at moments last season defensively. So I think just in general, with him on wing, he should be all around a much better player, and going alongside two pretty good above average defensive forwards in JT Miller and Will Cooley, I think could be pretty good with their kind of physical play as well, alongside a not super physical guy like Zibanejad. It could make a lot of sense there. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely don't forget to click that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content, as I do post every single day a video about the New York Rangers. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on today's video, and of course on Vladislav Gavrikov and JT Miller, and how big of an impact you think they can have on this Rangers team. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next one, and bye.